J. Robert Oppenheimer is widely praised as the father of the atomic bomb in the headlines, but outside of the media world, the man is known as a womanizer, whose favorite hobby was cheating. New scientific discoveries can pique people's interest, explain the unknown, and even help to improve the world. So it's no surprise that the father of the atomic bomb is the center of a lot of conversations. But there are a lot of filthy and shocking things you don't know about the man. So join us as we delve into the filthy, secret life of the physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer. Katherine Puening, better known as Kitty, was born in Germany but raised in Pittsburgh. Being the daughter of an engineer, she lived a comfortable life in the suburbs. Some even speculated that she had royal ancestry, but it was never proven. She also had a varied academic background, having obtained degrees in botany from the University of Pennsylvania and several other institutions, including the University of Pittsburgh, the University of Munich, the Sorbonne University, the University of Grenoble, and the University of Pennsylvania. Kitty Harrison was no great beauty, but she was vivacious, quick-witted, and radiated sex appeal, which is why in 1939, at a garden party in Pasadena, California, she grabbed the eye of a pioneering scientist named J. Robert Oppenheimer. The slim and charming scientist with intense blue eyes looked at the attractive 29-year-old woman and was instantly drawn to her. Kitty also felt the same way, even though she was 9 months into her third marriage to someone else. But that wasn't going to stop her. Months after their initial meeting, she began seeing Oppenheimer while still married to Harrison, and the couple was even invited to spend the summer of 1940 by Oppenheimer at his Perro Caliente ranch with him and his pals. But as fate would have it, only Kitty was able to come and spent 2 months with the scientist that summer, where she got pregnant. Oppenheimer informed Kitty's husband that she was expecting at the end of the summer, and worked out an agreement. Harrison agreed to divorce her, so that Oppenheimer might remarry her, and all parties were very civilized on the matter. And on the day Kitty's divorce was formalized, she and her new husband tied the knot in Virginia City, Nevada. Before moving to Los Alamos, New Mexico, where Oppenheimer worked on the Manhattan Project, the couple originally made their home in Pasadena. But he also had a secret affair with Jean Tatlock. As you might have seen in the movie, Kitty wasn't the only girl who had an immense impact on Oppenheimer's life. His on and off girlfriend, Jean, was also very important. Oppenheimer's connection with Tatlock suggests, correctly, that she remained a towering figure in his personal life. American Prometheus. The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin, and the film, details how, despite being 10 years younger than Oppenheimer, Tatlock had a profound impact on his developing sense of empathy, his attraction to communism's idealistic principles, and his very heart. They had many similarities, including melancholy and degrees from prestigious American institutions, but their lives simply weren't destined to cross. So, Robert and Jean first met at a fundraiser hosted by his Communist Party member landlady, Mary Ellen Washburn. At the time, Tatlock was a committed member of the Communist Party, while being a graduate psychiatry student at Stanford Medical School. Oppenheimer, on the other hand, was a professor of physics at Berkeley. Robert claimed they started dating the following fall after that party and became quite close, as stated in his written statement to the general manager of the United States Atomic Energy Commission for his 1954 security clearance review panel. According to the guy, the couple was at least twice close enough to marriage to think of themselves as engaged. Safe to say that the two had a stormy love affair. Tatlock is depicted as being inconsistent with Robert throughout the film and American Prometheus. There's a scene in the movie and the novel where she rejects his love advances, such as when he brings her flowers and she throws them away. But there was more to her actions than what could be called fickleness. Tatlock was diagnosed with serious depression and sought help at San Francisco's Mount Zion Hospital. She even broached the subject of her sexuality in private letters to a friend. She decided to study psychiatry during a time when homosexuality was uncommon and often treated as a mental illness. Many people believe that this disagreement was a major contributor to Tatlock's mental health problems. Oppenheimer, by all accounts, including his own, was madly in love with Jean. But despite the intensity of their love for one another, she ultimately rejected his marriage proposals. They spent New Year's Eve together in 1940, which means they were together for at least a few months after Oppenheimer married Kitty Harrison in November of that year. But Tatlock wasn't the only one he was cheating on Kitty with, and he had a second secret affair with Ruth Tolman. That's right. While overseeing the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer is rumored to have had an affair with Ruth Tolman. While married to Kitty, Oppenheimer was also rumored to have had an affair with psychologist Ruth Tolman of the Office of Strategic Services, in addition to his relationship with Tatlock. Ruth was married to Richard Tolman, a scientist from Pasadena who advised the Manhattan Project and was 10 years older than Oppenheimer. In the film, this is used to infer that Oppenheimer began an affair with Ruth because Richard was initially excluded from a conference regarding the Manhattan Project. The book American Prometheus says that Tolman and Oppenheimer's relationship was a very caring and sweet affair. An Atomic Love Story, The Extraordinary Women in Robert Oppenheimer's Life, written by Shirley Straczynski and Patricia Klaus in 2013, corroborates this, stating that the couple's relationship was not believed to have been sexual, only a close emotional bond and connection. But there are speculations that the two indeed slept together. In the film, as punishment for being left out of the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer has a brief exchange with Richard Tolman at Berkeley, which may have been overlooked by the audience. Oppenheimer wants Richard to let his wife know he'll be visiting in Pasadena later that week, after Richard, Vannevar Bush, and Ernest Lawrence refuse to discuss the objective of their secret meeting. When it is revealed that they were having an affair during his stay with the Tolmans, the reference makes perfect sense. Oppenheimer learns later from Leslie Groves that his fury was unjustified, as if that weren't horrible enough. Richard was the only person the general spoke to who had anything good to say about Oppenheimer, increasing the likelihood that Groves would hire him. Richard claims that Oppenheimer has integrity. According to his testimony in his security hearing, Richard died without knowing that the man he trusted and revered had exploited his goodwill out of jealousy and vanity. Oppenheimer remained with Kitty and had 3 children with her before he died in 1967. Peter and Tony, their offspring, were born to them. But his love life isn't the only thing that makes the physicist so controversial. He even tried killing one of his university's professors. We all remember the poison apple from Oppenheimer, right? What if I said it actually happened, but not exactly how the film depicts? So the young scientist ruins a lab experiment and is ridiculed for it by his mentor Patrick Blackett, one of several characters in the film who would go on to win a Nobel Prize. However, Oppenheimer's retaliation is the most exciting element. Blackett has forbidden Oppenheimer from attending a lecture by a visiting scholar, Niels Bohr. So, while he's cleaning up the lab, Oppenheimer decides to poison the professor's apple with cyanide. So he actually poisoned an apple with chemicals from the lab and left it on Blackett's desk because he was consumed by feelings of inadequacy and acute jealousy. Oppenheimer's friend Jeffrey Wyman suggests that the physicist may have exaggerated the story, and biographers have suggested that the poison may not have been cyanide, but something that would only make him sick. But whatever it was an act of jealousy, and Cambridge officials found out about it, and Oppenheimer's parents had to intervene to prevent his expulsion. At this point, we've heard the story about how the evil queen put Snow White to sleep with a poisoned apple. It's like a staple of fairy tales. Alan Turing, on the other hand, actually lost his life because of it. Turing was assisting the British in decoding German transmissions as Oppenheimer worked on the atomic weapon. In 1952, Turing was found dead with a half-eaten apple next to him. He had been poisoned with cyanide after being persecuted for his homosexuality. But that's a different video, though. Now, Robert was able to get away from that controversy thanks to his dad, but the accusations of espionage proved to be much more difficult. In 1942, when Oppenheimer was chosen to command a team of scientists in the Manhattan Project, a covert mission to produce the first atomic bomb, he was deeply influenced by 2 ladies, his wife Kitty and his first love Jean. Eventually, their ties to the American Communist Party helped bring down the once famous scientist, leading to false accusations that he was a Soviet spy and a humiliating end to his career. In 1953, at the height of the Red Scare, Senator Joseph McCarthy helped stoke mass paranoia that communists were infiltrating the U.S., and Oppenheimer became a target of the House Un-American Activities Committee. The scientist was also accused of having communist ties and deemed a security risk by the Atomic Energy Commission. Just 4 days before Christmas in 1953, Oppenheimer got the shock of his life and couldn't believe what was happening to him. That afternoon, he got a letter detailing the AEC's accusations against him. He had to make a decision: leave the commission or go to war. After the U.S. attacked Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Oppenheimer often thought something dreadful awaited him. The FBI had apparently begun tapping his phone. Members of Congress on the lookout for communists called for his head. Oppenheimer's opposition to the Air Force's proposal for huge strategic bombing with nuclear weapons, as well as his left-wing actions at Berkeley in the 1930s, have recently been brought to light, and the once great scientist was seen as the enemy of the state. The scientist's career and reputation were in jeopardy because he had crossed AEC chairman Lewis Strauss, the guy who did everything in his power to make sure Oppenheimer got stripped of his security clearance. Don't start feeling too bad for him though, because you'll be shocked to know that Oppenheimer could have stopped the nuclear bomb if he didn't. Following the atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Oppenheimer began calling for the global regulation of nuclear weapons. Some politicians and military leaders who advocated for a more aggressive nuclear attitude disagreed with him because of this stance. But according to some lesser-known facts, he could have stopped it. That's right, Oppenheimer was told that he might want to abandon the Manhattan Project. According to one expert, the combat near Stalingrad in 1943 solidified the fact that the Germans were doomed to defeat. This expert is the Croatian physicist Ivan Supek. At that point, Leo Szilard publicly argued against the use of nuclear weapons. He told Oppenheimer that he should have stopped the project, but didn't. As expected, the initiative was unstoppable. Supek pushed for a 100% nuclear disarmament policy. His warnings concerning the dangers of misusing atomic power date all the way back to 1944, 14 months before Hiroshima was bombed. Oppenheimer, however, paid no attention. And that wraps up the filthy and secret life of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Comment down below which fact had your jaw on the floor and which had you curling your toes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.